past, VR therapy emerged a lot and seems to be promising, especially for treating phobias and anxieties. So our project vision is that Metachron, as an VR application, should be able to not only detect, correct, but also manipulate the time perception for people in VR. And in this simple example, you see just a raw, empty waiting room versus a fully crowded waiting room. And already this should have an impact on your time perception. But the question is how we can manipulate time perception in VR. So in our perspective, there are many ways of modifying the user representation and behavior, but also there are many ways of modifying object influences and behavior. And in addition to that, the environment, so the influences coming through the environment setting. To answer this question, how to manipulate time perception in VR, we hope with Metachron. And Metachron will be a tool to systematically explore possibilities and effects I already mentioned. The very rough overview of our current architecture looks like that. So we support in the project group the experiments. We build demos, and further we plan to build an application for diagnose altered time perceptions, and then in the end to build therapies to help people suffering under them. Metachron is able to control the velocity, density, and synchronicity of objects, for example, and our library supports virtual humans, objects, environments, and interactions. Everything is built upon the Unreal Engine 4, which is a modern state-of-the-art game creation engine. So I will first go quickly over the one aspect of modifying user representation, because later my colleague Fabian will present it to you in more detail. What can you think of in user representation in VR? It is like what you see here in the upper left corner. You see the user in the real room wearing his controllers and the headset and seeing in the mirror, and when he looks down, his own body moving accordingly. Our virtual human library supports several realistic looking virtual humans or very abstract ones, like you see here with just a pillar and a ball, or like, yeah, normal semi-realistic agents in the back. We can also generate very realistic looking avatars, or not only realistic, but similar to yourself looking avatars, because we have the availability of scanning participants. And our Metachron application also supports the technology to transfer movements synchronously into the virtual environment, what you can see here. I will now go more in detail on the object and environmental influences. And we proposed 3 main axes how we can manipulate objects in the scene. So the example on the left, an empty waiting room versus a fully crowded waiting room you already saw in the beginning. We correspond to this as our density axis. An accelerated clock would correspond to our velocity axis, and synchronicity, here's an example where we delay a physical input event. So the expected response is kind of delayed for the user. And we suggest overall that these changes in the virtual environment should alter the time perception of the user. To give you a few examples first of these axis manipulations, you see a virtual environment, the star field environment, manipulated in the amount of stars and in the velocity it is moving towards the user. In this example, you see how like a physics simulation of these dropping balls is or can be accelerated and decelerated. Here's an example for the synchronicity manipulation example. It gets a bit more obvious if sound can be here too, but you can here just think of the lamp switch response after you press the button can be delayed. Another example for the density axis in terms of environmental objects or environmental density, how we tagged it here, is you see on the left the same room, but with a very low number of surrounding objects versus on the right side, a high number of surrounding objects. Also an example for the manipulation of this density axis, you can think of having more agents in the room, or to take the waiting room example, to wait together with more virtually agents or less agents. Here we have just a quick example that we are also capable of generating different atmospheres. So kind of very roughly, if they are ignoring you, if they are staring at you, looking away from you, or making like an positive overall atmosphere. This should increase pressure and is interesting enough to research if this has an influence too. So to quickly summarize our libraries for you, in this video, we just show you how many different objects we have already and that they're all manipulable in their velocity in this example. So especially the sunrise, the birds in the sky, a particle effect like the torch, the clock and the phone you see already. So we go over to the environments library. Quick showcase that we already support 5 different environments for experiments that are planned, 10 for demos and prototypes. They are all compatible with VR headsets, and they're ranging from photorealistic replicas of rooms to very fictitious settings and very abstract settings like this Starfield environment or this VR tunnel environment. Our Metachron framework also supports eye tracking. We want to use this for further analysis. So what participants are more interested in the virtual scene, if like distracting elements work as we expect them to work. We can visualize a 3D heat map in this virtual environment. What you see here, so different colors for longer fixation points. And here you see also a live example where the participant is looking at. A quick example for showing that we are also able to have questionnaires inside virtual reality, which is very important in our perspective to quickly measure in vivo qualitative data between trials, for example. We not want participants to, for every time, take off the headset and take it on again. We support the standard questionnaires for time experience, cyber sickness, presence already. They're all capable of being exported in the CVS format. And additionally, we have an option that neutral environment background could be filled in. A record and playback functionality is also available. So it seems to be like very nice to look at the experiment scenario, for example, afterwards, and to turn around the camera to watch it, replay it, and have every opportunity. Another important aspect, but hard to explain for me, was that our Metachron application should be connectable to different user interfaces. We we very soon we recognized that we need a patient UI. What you see in the beginning, small sliders, changing velocity of objects to play a bit around of the system if you're self-immersed in the environment. But we additionally need a therapist UI, a therapist sitting beside the patient, having full control of the application, is able to abort the application at any time. And in addition to that, we recognize that we even need experiment UIs. This is very important because for an experiment, what you see in this example, the researchers asked us for being able to tweak every single detail of the experiment scene. So to change, in this example, the density of the rectangles coming towards you, the speed, the time duration, specific settings for VR, like the field of view, a reference frame, or the rectangle settings like the color or the width. This is an example for a possible future therapist UI. It's taken from the web interface from Psios. And this is an example where you can see that our Metachron framework also needs the connection to this web user interface very soon. And yeah, this is just prepared by this web interface compatibility. Thank you very much for your attention. Again, I'm Maximilian Landeck from the HCI group Würzburg. You find my contact information here. And yeah, I'm open for any questions.